I am running for District 1 School Board, and how I got into this started actually a few years ago. Prior to actually running for school board, I was a teacher, and once I had my children, my whole perspective really started to change on the purpose of education and the higher aims of education. And we started looking at our neighborhood school and where we would send our two kids when they were school age. And what I found was that we have quite a utilitarian focus on education. The emphasis was more about testing and creating a workforce, and I was looking for more. I was looking for an education that really would impact the hearts, minds, and souls of my kids, and the emphasis would be on knowledge and virtues. And all this college and career readiness that was being thrown around at the time, I just felt like the more we talked about it, the further we were getting to being college and career ready. So I had stumbled upon a charter initiative that was launched by Hillsdale College, and I thought when I read about it, it was essentially the dream school as a teacher, the kind of school I would want to teach in, but it was also the kind of school I would want my children to go to. So we decided to bring a piece of this to Naples, and it's really about options for our parents, because truly a one-size-fits-all education system doesn't meet the needs of every child. So I have been in a all-volunteer capacity since 2011 with a team of parents, citizens, helping to launch this school here in Collier County, which will open next month. So that is what I've been doing, and then through the hundreds of conversations I've had with parents, I found that things are not okay here. Too many parents are trying to out-of-zone their children and are looking for more for their kids. And so we couldn't take everybody. I mean, it's essentially a statutory requirement to have a random lottery. We have waiting lists for every grade. There's at least 80 on the kindergarten wait list. So my hope is to improve our neighborhood schools and instill that faith and trust again in our neighborhood schools for our parents.
That sounds like a very good explanation of the Mason Classical Academy, but why are you running for, and why you did the things you've done for that, but why are you running for school board in the broader sense?
Well, that's what I was going with right there, was with all the conversations I've had with parents and even teachers about what they want and what they're not getting in their neighborhood schools. And it's about strengthening our schools again so that our parents are getting that kind of education that they're looking for. And also teachers, on the teacher side, I often found, even just in the couple years I taught here in the district at the high school level, it seemed every year we would return, there would be significant changes. And each year, the responsibilities that were added to the teacher's workload would just incrementally increase. And I think over time now it's just, teachers feel that this is just the way it is. This is teaching today. And I don't believe that. I think we need to go back to allowing teachers to teach instead of teaching to test, and really express their passion again in what they know. And I also saw that the way they talk about teachers is guides on the side. I've been to several school board meetings, and they keep referring to these teachers, they're professionals. They're the ones with the wisdom and knowledge that should be sharing with our kids, but yet they say they're guides on the side. They're facilitators. And I think that undermines them as teachers and professionals.
You talked about the number of applications for out-of-zone schools. I'm taking it, you're saying that this implies that some of our schools are inferior. What would you do to change this?
I think, and this is one of the big things I'm running on, is the curriculum. And I think what we've seen over the last decade or more, that we're often, education is following one fad after the next, finding the next best thing. And then when they find this new fad and find that it doesn't work, they get rid of it and find something else. And if you look at the successful schools across the country, those that are working and really producing knowledgeable citizens by the time they graduate, their curriculum doesn't change every year. They're using things that actually work and that are effective, and then it provides the teachers the opportunity for professional development in the same subject area, so they really become experts in their fields versus the constant change that we see. So I would like to stabilize the curriculum, especially in the early years, and get back to the kind of education that builds the foundations during the elementary years, so that by the time they're in high school, they can really think on their own and know why they believe something. But we're not doing that right now.
But that doesn't tell me, I mean, apparently if we're changing curriculum, aren't all schools subject to this? Still, there is this feeling that one school is superior to the other.
Okay, so I'll explain that. So oftentimes the school grades, let's talk about the school grades. Those are very misleading. So parents are using the grades of a school to make the decision whether or not to send their kids out of zone. What we found is that parents, even in the A schools, are finding out that they're not getting an A quality education. So we're not being honest right now with parents. So right now, parents who are trying to out of zone are thinking that they're getting something better, when in fact they're actually getting the same exact curriculum. It might be a different environment where there's more parental involvement. This is what our parents are telling us. But I think oftentimes parents don't know what they want until they hear it. And now that many of them, and this happened to me, I was an educator. I was never exposed to this kind of education, and when I heard this is exactly what I wanted for not only for my kids, but it works, it's effective, and it's truly amazing when you see it in practice.
Kelly, can you provide some details as to what Mason is teaching, you know, what makes it so much better than what the public school offering currently has?
Okay, well, it's based on really looking at a hierarchy of knowledge. In the early years, as you all know, if you have children, when they're young, their brains are sponges. I mean, my son, when he was 3, memorized all of his presidents in order. My daughter was 4. Kids who learn multiple languages, I had a friend who's from Spain. They went to Spain over the summer. Her daughter was 3 years old, picked up, she's bilingual. That's when they're complete sponges, but we do things backwards here. We're not filling them with knowledge. They're not getting access to all the disciplines. And I say disciplines of the vocabulary of the math and literature, science, arts and music, history, those things we're not teaching science every day. Our kids aren't getting world and American history and geography beginning in kindergarten. They don't get it, and that's what we teach. We actually teach foreign language beginning in 1st grade, because that's when they can do it. The other part is we often hear we're teaching critical thinking. You can't teach critical thinking. Critical thinking stems from, first off, this, like it's the hierarchy of knowledge. So when they're young, the early years, their brains are sponges. They pick up all this knowledge. It doesn't mean anything yet to them, because physiologically their brains are not prepared to think at a higher level yet. As they develop, now that they have this foundation of knowledge, they can start asking logical questions and start seeing the connections with different things. By the time they reach the high school years, because they've had this in order hierarchy of knowledge, by the time they're in high school, they really can defend why they believe something, because they've had that solid foundation first and foremost, and then have gone through the logic phase. And that's really how the human brain works, but we're almost working against that, and I'd like to see that change.
It's been raised during the campaign, and perhaps you'd like to talk about it, that by being so closely involved with Mason Classical Academy, that in effect is a conflict of interest, and that you shouldn't sit on the school board and be so heavily involved in this particular school. How do you respond to that?
Well, first, and it is a good question. Before I decided to file for the school board, we reached out to the Attorney General's office and the Florida Commission on Ethics to find out because, I mean, frankly, if you look at the term conflict of interest, it is a legal term. So we don't take that lightly. In both cases, they referred to us to legal opinions that stated that there is no conflict of interest for a couple reasons. One, I don't get paid. There is no financial interest. I have been volunteering my time for 3 years. Most of the time it has been 7 days a week. Things are obviously starting to settle in now that we have paid staff who work at the academy, so my role has diminished significantly. I mean, we were doing everything from writing the charter to developing the curriculum in partnership with Hillsdale, budgets, marketing, website, creating our own website, and I mean, pretty much all encompassing from just an idea in my family room to an actual physical school and facilities and the whole 9 yards. I haven't received a penny from all of this effort. And I did this because I wanted to improve the schools here. And I believe, and this is my firm belief, I'm very patriotic. My father was a Vietnam veteran. I grew up in a home that we celebrated our country. And I believe the future success of America depends on a strong public education system. And so it's not a conflict of interest. In fact, I see it as a unity of interest. And one thing a lot of people don't understand with Mason is that, well, it is a public school. It's part of the Collier schools just as all of the other ones are. And our goals are the same. We want high academic achievement, financial responsibility, but we operate under the Florida Sunshine Law just as the Collier County School Board. So everything is out in the open. It's completely transparent. There's no, someone accused us of backroom meetings. We're under the Sunshine Law. And I have experience with operating under the Sunshine and know the legalities of it. So I actually look at this experience as it couldn't have prepared me more for my role as a school board member.
I wanted to follow up on the Sunshine Law question. If you and one of the other candidates running in one of the other districts were both elected, if you were both at Mason Academy board meetings, how would you avoid crossing the line into a Sunshine Law violation in that circumstance?
Well, that's a great question. Actually, I am family friends with many of the people that serve on the board or involved with MCA, and our kids spend time together. So we are together in social settings and have been over the last couple years. We do not talk about MCA business at our social events, and it's actually kind of a nice break from MCA to actually focus on just life and family. We follow the law. We made sure our attorney guided us on how to follow the Florida Sunshine Law, because when I first learned of it, I had no idea that I thought it meant just a quorum, but then I found out, no, it's one and another person. We cannot discuss. I can't call, text, email, and I tell this to parents because a lot of times parents will ask me a question, let's say about facilities. I don't deal directly with the facilities. That's another board member's responsibility. They're essentially the point of contact. I said, I can't call him up or email him and ask him. I have to wait until the board meeting to find out the update, just as you will. So, I mean, we follow it. We do not want to put ourselves in a position of getting in trouble by the law. I'm a person of integrity. You can check my background. I don't have a past where I've been arrested or anything. So, like I said, I'm a stand-up citizen here, and I think I'm a professional. So.
You mentioned that the professionals at the academy now are taking over a lot of the duties. Were you elected to the school board, you can still be a member of the Mason Academy board going forward, you think?
Yeah, I mean, other school board members are allowed to serve and volunteer with other community organizations. I look at it as a plus. We're trying to make our community better. I think volunteering your time and serving and helping the community is a great bonus. And like I said, this is another school in the county. Of course I want it to be successful, but I want all of our schools to be successful. Like I said, it's really the future of our country depends on strong public education.
With the Mason Academy, you'll be very nimble. You'll be able to do different things in different classes. How is that going to butt up against the behemoth of the whole school district? Won't that be incredibly frustrating for you to try to change curriculum in all the schools as opposed to
Well, you
one?
can't, yeah, I mean, that is a good question. You can't tackle it in its entirety. It's going to have to be a plan in place of incrementally doing some things. Here's one thing that's interesting. Our county was using Spalding Phonics, which is a top-notch phonics program. I mean, it's one of the, I would say it's in the top 2 or 3 best phonics programs you could have. So we do have teachers who have experience in it, and some are still using it kind of in secret because they got rid of teaching phonics, which is completely absurd when how else do you teach reading? I mean, I have a 5-year-old and that's how she's reading, is sounding out words. We got rid of this great phonics program. I would like to see that come back and really prepare our teachers on how to implement it properly so we're not throwing it out the door because it is so good. And the other things are just little things we can do, especially in the elementary years, such as I would love to see a math block during the elementary years. You see, most elementary kids are in here. I'm in 3rd grade, so I take 3rd grade math. Well, what if you're a child who is high achieving? There's nowhere for you to go. But if you have a math block during the day, it's based on your level and ability. You could also, on the flip side, have a child who may be a 5th grader who is passed along and pushed through and never received the foundational skills in math. And you can't do higher order math if you don't have the foundations. That child would actually have the opportunity to go back down a level, build the foundations, master that, and then move back up. That's a benefit to both sides, those who are excelling and those who need remediation. I would love to see that implemented. So you'd have to do it piece by piece. You couldn't just put an all new, brand new throughout K through 12. That's impossible. So we would do things that make the biggest difference right away and go from there.
You talked about instilling virtues in the educational system. How would you do that in Collier County schools?
Well, I think that starts with the discipline and codes of conduct at our school. I taught here at a high school, and I would say that character was not a priority in our school. I think, we had some tremendous students, but I also experienced firsthand complete disrespect from these students, and there was no real support I found with teachers at the administration level in the schools. So if they were having an issue with students, the administration needs to back up the teachers so that we're not sending a message to the students that they can get away with things like that. I think it's important that we tighten up our discipline codes of conduct in every school, and that our teachers, administration, and our students understand that this is how we conduct ourselves, whether it's in the classroom, in the hallways, before, after school, that these things are important. But it's just not taught. In fact, when I was a high school teacher, on the first day of school, I taught manners. And the kids would laugh, but most of them did not know simple things like please and thank you. I think those are important. And if you look at what employers are saying nowadays about the graduates coming out of high schools and even college, one thing that lacks is they say that they lack character. And we want stand-up citizens. This needs to be instilled. And if it's not taught at home, it should be, and that's fine, that's at home. But in school, we need to raise the level of standard as far as the discipline and code of conduct.
Questions have been asked at some of the campaign forums, and it's maybe too complex to give a 30-second answer or whatever you get at those forums, but what are your views on teaching religion in the schools?
Well, in a public school, endorsing any religion is not acceptable. I mean, you have to follow the law of the land. Now, parents that want religion taught in their schools have a choice to send their children to private parochial schools. So no, I don't support that. Do I support, I don't support, on the flip side, there was a study conducted in the state of Florida with social studies textbooks, and the teaching of pro-Islam to Christianity was 70-1. I don't support that. And that's another whole other issue as far as the kinds of books our kids are being exposed to and the lessons they're learning. I don't believe any political agenda has any place, and I know I've been accused because of my conservative values that it's all political. If you look at what's being taught now, it's a complete political agenda. And I don't believe our kids need to be exposed to propaganda at such a young age. These are moldable minds, and they need to be learning to pursue truth.
Could you give me an example of the political agenda that's being taught?
Okay, I can give one example. A parent shared with me that her child in 3rd grade was reading a story about 2 pirate women who fall in love with each other. I clearly think at third grade that's inappropriate, and I think as we've seen with what's going on across the country with the things on the ballot regarding same-sex marriage, there you go. If you look at the 10th grade English curriculum, you'll see the readings that go along with their themes of acceptance that are very pro-Islam. So I just don't think there's a place for that. I would like to see a return of using primary documents, because it doesn't have a bias. You can actually get into the actual writings of the time, and also bringing back good literature. I mean, if you look at our literature books, they're about this big, they weigh approximately 7 pounds, and no kid reads an entire book in its entirety. And I think we're looking at having quantity over quality, and I think we need to return to good stories that are time tested, and those are going back to those virtues that is taught within those stories. So I would like to see some of that come back. Those are important. Like I said, this isn't about creating a workforce. Most kids are either bored or don't like school. They rather learn outside of school, because it's become so much about testing and skills behind computers. I mean, look at iPhones. I mean, most of us have iPhones. It doesn't take long to figure it out, but it takes years to develop your communication and writing skills. Those take years to develop. Figuring out how to use a technology tool that they seem to make easier and easier for us to use seems like a waste of precious instructional time.
Have any organizations given you financial support?
No. Not that I can think of. No, all my support is coming from just citizens of this community, and in small checks. I haven't received any large $1,000 checks. It's just grassroots support.
You mentioned you were a teacher in the schools. What years was that?
I was here 2006 to 2008, and I was just going on maternity leave and coming back, but I decided that I wanted to be home.
At one school or multiple schools?
Palmetto Ridge High School.
Aside from volunteering with Mason now, do you have a job otherwise?
I do not. Essentially I've been working for free for a few years, and I volunteer my time at my local church as well.
And how long have you been a member of, or a resident of Collier County? Or-
Since 2006. I moved here in
Okay.
the summer of 2006.
Okay.
How do you feel about the level of teacher pay and evaluating teachers?
Well, the current system right now, I mean, evaluating a teacher based on students they don't even teach is really absurd. I would like to see more principals have the opportunity to evaluate and actually observe multiple times during the year and assess their teachers based on the observations in conjunction with test scores, but everything is so focused on these test scores, and I don't think we're really getting a clear, honest picture of where we are with the test scores. So it isn't fair the way the current system is set up as far as evaluating our teachers. And the pay, I understand it was 7 years before they received any pay increase. I think that's a problem that we're going that long. But I also I don't support an across-the-board raise either. And one question that was asked, do we support, if there was an area of high need for, say, a science or math teacher, would we support paying them more? Because right now it's based on, everyone's paid the same based on years of service and what your degrees are. I would say yes. I think the market incentives you might have to pay a little bit more to bring in someone top-notch that's a hard-to-fill position.
Along those same lines, how is the pay at Mason? Is it different from, or are they set to rules where they have to be paid the same as the Collier County School
we
District?
can pay as much or as little as we want. We're actually paying our teachers 3% more than the Collier County School District. In fact, when finding a facility was probably the biggest obstacle, And when we landed this facility, compared to the other one that we were originally supposed to get, it freed up a significant chunk of money in our budget because the current facility we're moving into is a lot less expensive. And what the decision we made was to put that money into teacher salaries. So that's, to me, speaks volumes about our organization and how we value our teachers.
What kind of job is the superintendent doing?
Well, I would say, I mean, she's doing exactly what the current school board is allowing her to do, and she pretty much has free reign, in my opinion. I think she has done a great job bringing in the business community. I think that's an important piece, but I would like to see her make bringing in the parents more of a priority than the business community. I think her focus has been too much on technology. So as far as my rating on that, I don't think that's a priority. But I would say she's doing okay. There's room for improvement, but I think it's that comes down to the board. I don't think the board is truly governing as they're supposed to. I mean, the governing board's responsibility is to ensure our students are having strong academic achievement, that we're financially responsible. Her job is to execute those things. But what I've seen, it just seems that she kind of has free reign to do as she pleases, and the board just agrees with anything that comes in front. I mean, frankly, the contract extension, which may be a question that comes up, there was no discussion at that meeting. None. Not a single thing, and I think that's unfortunate because in my opportunity of serving on a governing board, we've had a lot of debate and discussion. It doesn't have to be contentious. People think, oh, we're going to go back to five years when things were heated and people didn't get along. Well, I don't think you're doing everyone a disservice when you're just getting along. You can have respectful debates, and that's what we've done, and that's how you come to good decisions, as hearing from other viewpoints. Because sometimes you only see it from one side, and it's good to hear and actually discuss and evaluate what other people are saying.
Is Common Core a factor at Mason Classical, and it certainly is a factor in the school system at large? What are your thoughts on that and how it should be implemented or play out?
Well, we are to follow the Florida standards because they're now not calling them Common Core. So we just still, at Mason, they still have to take all the state mandated tests. One thing we found here locally in the district is that there's layers of extra testing that's being added by the district, which I'm not in favor of. I mean, we'll deal with the state mandated things. I really support local education and control, so I don't support Common Core and how it was implemented. And if you look at all the companies making money, you talk about conflict of interest. I mean, wow, the professional development, the testing company, the textbooks, and our district went and started buying all these Common Core textbooks. I have one at the office that it's disturbing the what's in some of these Common Core books, and that goes back to my original thing that I don't think any political agenda has any place in our public schools.
We're running out of time. Is there a topic that you particularly wanted to address that we haven't talked about?
No, I just would hope that the conflict of interest conversation can be put away. It's obvious that it's politically motivated. If you look at my record of service and the fact that I've volunteered so much time to make education better, I mean, frankly, when I was teaching, I would hear from the teachers, whether we were meeting outside in social settings, everyone would talk about the things they saw that was wrong and what they would have liked to see different. Same with parents, talking with parents, what was wrong. And we all have been talking about what's wrong with public education. I mean, we actually did something. We put in and committed our time, many hours that you know, on the weekends when people are at the beach or the pool with their families, we're working on making education better. And the charter schools really only make up 2% of the Collier population. And I think it's great to have choice and options. And I hope people will see that I care deeply. I don't have any financial gain here. It's truly about our kids. It's about improving education. And that's about all I can say about that. So.